Welcome to Foodland Ventures 2022 Agri-Food Tech Demo Day, where the VC and Accelerator built for Agri-Food Tech founders. We see the challenges lying ahead in our agri-food system. Labor shortage, climate crisis, supply chain hurdles, and food security many countries now see as a major challenge. These are all reasons why we're looking for solutions and startups that could build a more resilient food system, solving problems with innovations from farm to table. Founded by serial entrepreneurs in agri-food and technology, we're built to support founders at the intersection of innovation and food. We work closely with our portfolio and are dedicated to connecting the teams to key decision makers in the industry. From last year, not only did we start our operations in North America, but we also tightened our collaborations with Taiwan's governmental partners to connect Taiwan's resources and capital to take part in building a more resilient global food system. To date, we have invested across the food supply chain in 12 portfolio companies, with their total valuation exceeding $440 million. We are Foodland Ventures. Join us on the revolution to move the industry forward with innovation and technology.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Andrea Xu, the Director General of National Science and Technology Council, NSTC of Taiwan. I'm so pleased to be with all of you today that are tuning in online and welcome you to the Foodland Ventures 2022 Agri-Food Tech Demo Day. Foodland Ventures has been a long-term partner of Taiwan Tech Arena, TTA. With our joint effort, we've witnessed together the growth of agri-food tech ecosystem in Taiwan, and have also been pushing for more opportunities for Taiwanese and international startups by engaging with talents, capital, and markets to bring the whole ecosystem onto the international stage. The 5 teams present today are from Taiwan, United States, and Singapore. This demonstrates that Taiwan does have a robust farm-to-table supply chain, and Foodland Ventures can contribute more international collaborations, in particular the agri-food tech sector. Lastly, I will congratulate the 5 staffs again, and we are proud to be part of your journeys. Thank you again for joining us online, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you, Andrea, and our partners at NDC, NSTC, and TTA for the continuous support and building the ecosystem together. I'm Leo Lin, the Community Manager here at Foodland Ventures. Again, I'd like to sincerely welcome you all to our demo day today. In this event, we'll see teams with truly innovative solutions working to tackle the real issues on carbon emissions, water pollution, food security, and even issues with the aging society we see across different regions. Throughout our time working with these founders, we are truly impressed by their grit and resilience, and most importantly, their commitment to solve real challenges with real innovations. Before moving on to the demos, I'd like to welcome our Program Manager, Evelyn, to give a few words and some updates and highlights from our Batch 1 portfolio. Take it away, Evelyn.
Hi, I'm Evelyn, the Program Manager of Foodland Ventures. At our Accelerator, we help global founders by assisting them to connect with agri-food tech related resources and fundraise with industry-specific investors across the APAC and North America regions to enable their fast growth in each of the problems they're solving. Before moving on to the startup demos, we would like to share some exciting updates from our portfolio companies. Butrista Technology, the drink bot that automates the labor-intensive process of making specialty drinks, has had its total funding reaching $55 million. Its recurring revenue has grown 10 times in under 12 months, and is now in 26 states in the US and growing rapidly. Yoka Express, the autonomous restaurant solution delivering 24/7 gourmet food, has started new partnerships with Tibomark, a leading frozen food innovator from Japan, and international ramen noodle chain Ibuto. Now, Yoka is successfully growing in the US and Japan's markets, and they are planning to expand to the European market in 2023. Kebab Cloud, a cloud SaaS and PaaS service provider for retail and F&B chain stores. In 2021, the SaaS-based model created an annual revenue of $7 million, and the team will continue pushing to deepen their market penetration in Japan, the US, and Southeast Asia markets. Currently, Kebab is raising for Series B and looks to work with strategic partners while expanding their sales team in North America. Taitan Agriculture, the fresh ingredient solution connecting producers and ingredient users with data and IoT-driven solutions in both B2B and B2C. With the acquisition of the Kaohsiung-based wholesaler in May, the company expanded its operations in 2 major metropolitan areas. The company created an annual revenue of $10 million in 2022 by partnering with over 620 major restaurant brands. Without further ado, let's get right into the demo pitch of Fulan Ventures' second cohort. First, let's welcome Jianyu Huang, the co-founder and CEO of Lipid. US-based Lipid is a pioneer in alternative protein sectors. Their signature product, VitalFat, is a proprietary line of plant-based fats made from 97% vegan oils and water. It's a creamy, juicy animal fat analog that is all natural and trans fat-free. They have successfully commercialized their product and are now working with major food chains.
Hello, everyone. This is Jianyu Huang from Lipid. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lipid. Lipid is an alternative meat startup that we bring luxurious texture, juiciness, and really good mouthfeel back to plant-based meat, leveraging our proprietary fat technology. We all know that plant-based meat is growing rapidly, but although with this strong growth in the past few years, it's only 2% of the traditional meat market. So there are still at least 5 to 10 times of growing opportunity in the next 10 years. And the driving force behind it is actually the growth of population with flexitarian. So there are more and more people turning their eating diet and habits into flexitarian. And actually, 47% of the young generation in the States claim themselves as a flexitarian. And fat is the second largest component in the meat products. So we couldn't make a really good alternative meat without a good alternative fat solution. And that's how Lipid played into this industry and bringing new solution to the market by creating a plant-based fat that can mimic the animal fat's texture, mouthfeel, flavors, and melting behavior. So our Vital Fat is made with plant-based oils, for example, like canola oils or soybean oils. And we use our proprietary microencapsulation technology to change its texture and the performance to become more like a solid fat, like an adipose tissue. So with that, you can see that the performance itself is really just like animal fat. And in addition to it, the nutritional profile is actually a lot better. Like we reduce more than 97% of saturated fat comparing with coconut oil that people usually use in plant-based meat right now. And we successfully scaled it up from our bench scale to like a pilot scale that we are supplying to one of the largest coffee chain store in Taiwan, that we brought out and co-launched a product with them in July this year into more than 500 coffee shops with 6 different menu items. And not only that, with a good fat, we can bring alternative meat to the next level. So I want to introduce you the world's first vegan pork belly. It can only be enabled because of our fat that with its high melting behavior. So the plant-based fat that we create, it's stable under cooking temperature. And that's how we can recreate the bacon type of fat and the fat in the pork belly. And we plan to bring this pork belly meat lines into the market in the next 2 years. We are focusing on the market in the States, and we are looking for chefs and restaurants to work together to launch this meat lines. And our effort is recognized by several big events and competitions like CPF Innovation Challenge in Singapore, Hello Tomorrow Challenge in France last year. And also we brought our vegan pork belly into Future Food Tech London this year in September. And we won the first place in the startup showcase. So that's what Lipid is making. We are making a plant-based food leveraging a fat technology. And if you are interested in those type of plant-based meat products, definitely reach out to us. We have an office in SF and also like the other office in Taipei handling Asia related business. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Howard Lee, the investment manager here at Fulan Ventures. I want to welcome Ray from Calyx, whose mission is to apply advanced biomaterials to create inexpensive and power-efficient sensors for real-time detection and characterization of airborne chemical compounds. They've designed highly sensitive and selective sensors for airborne chemicals by leveraging genetic engineering and chemical modifications, making poultry farming more efficient and sustainable.
Good morning, everyone. This is Ray, founder and CEO of Calyx. So at Calyx, we bring the full transparency on data to help animal producers save money while increase flock performance. According to Food and Agriculture Organization, by 2050, we will need to produce 60% more food to feed the entire world populations of 10 billion people. While most of the VCs are focusing on the alternative protein, we firmly believe that traditional proteins is still a huge market and it will never go away. So we need a more innovative way to make the production more sustainable and efficient to feed the entire world's populations. So we started from chicken. So why chicken? Because chicken meat is the most consumed meat out there in the globe. Everyone loves chicken, right? Regardless of their race, countries, or their religions. It has the lowest carbon footprint and doesn't have any overfishing problems. It has more than 50% cut in the greenhouse gas emissions compared to red meat. So how do we do this? We build a turnkey solution to decarbonize poultry and grow chicken more sustainably. The solution includes a highly modular sensor that can capture all the important environmental parameters in the live production farm. And we also have an AI chicken scale camera, which can convert the volume of the birds into the weight so that we can do a lot of correlations, notifications, and predictions on the cloud platform to help our customers optimize their live production outcomes. So we've proven that the solution can help our customers bring more than 20 times return on investment. And on top of that, we can provide actionable insights to customers and also help them avoid any potential losses or incidents from happening. So this is pretty much like a nest for animal farming, not like the traditional infrastructure that only includes the temperature humidity sensor with some sort of on-site control. Our Calyx advanced solution will be able to monitor more than 11 key parameters in the farm. And on top of that, we can add a layer of smart analytics and also remote centralized control to help our customers get to the predictive and prescriptive mode. And as a result, we can help them increase their net profit by more than 20%. So our competitive advantage is that our solution has no consumables. So then we are the only company in the market that can provide a subscription model to customers with no hidden fee. With minimal maintenance and replacement, we can bring really good economic benefits to the customers in case of large-scale deployment. And it is completely environmentally friendly. So the value that we can provide to our customers is that we can help them economically upgrade all the farm to revolutionize data-driven animal farming. So besides the typical benefits from the IoT solution, improve revenue, lower labor requirements and costs, we can really bring the full transparency on data to help our customers, the poultry companies and their contract farmers, build a better and sustainable relationship. And with our solution, they can set up the new environmental control KPIs, which can help them manage their farm in an easier manner. So we got really positive feedback from all our pilot customers with more than 99% pilot conversion rate. So this is a huge market. The global precision animal farming market will grow from $3.1 billion to $4.8 billion by 2025 with a compound annual growth rate of 9%. The system that we built can fit in multiple applications. So once we tackle the broiler market, we have plans to get into layers and swine and so forth. We also have really positive trend to help us facilitate the business. So Americans are actually eating more chicken than ever before. So the consumption of chicken meat has become even twice or even more than most of the red meat in the market. So we project our revenue to grow to $25 million recurring revenue in the next 3 years. Currently, we have deals in our pipeline that add up to around $6.5 million in ARR. And so far, we have deployed in more than 80 farms, more than 800 devices, and engaging with more than 7 industry-leading brands. And there are more than 4 corporate contracts already signed or in progress. So in order to penetrate the market faster, we also work with the system integrators on the one-time sales. Currently, we have deals in our pipeline that add up to around $2 million in this segment. And we are also working with more than 7 corporate system integrators. And most of them already signed a product sample evaluation agreement or the NDA with Calix. So our plan is to complete the infrastructure for real-time monitoring in live production farms. Once we have that, we can move up to upsell our solution in smart analytics, and then will be the predictive and prescriptive solutions. Eventually, we will get to the automatic precision farming. So our team and I, we've been working on this for more than 8 years. So Benson and I, we both went to UC Berkeley, and we both served as the research affiliate at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab before we started the company. Regina is our head of growth, has the business administration background, working at the Bayer, Ben & Company, BCG before, and she got her MBA, MPA degree from Wharton and also Harvard University. So currently we have more than 30 full-time employees across the global operations in the States and Taiwan. We also have really good advisory board to help us succeed. We got Peter Shi, the founder and CTO of Ray Systems. We also have Patrice Gaglia, the former CTO of HP. And also Naim Zafar, the former VP of Oracle, serving as our business strategy advisors. So thank you for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. So if you're interested in the idea of using the least resource to create a lot more traditional protein to feed the entire world populations, come talk to us and join our journey. Thank you.
Next, we have Jonathan, the co-founder and CEO of Pululo. They use disruptive fermentation technology to upcycle fresh agricultural waste and byproducts from the food industry to create highly nutritious, affordable, and sustainable food. This sustainable food can meet the growing needs of global consumption and at the same time tackle food inflation and food security issues.
Good day, everyone. I'm Jonathan, founder of Pululo. Pululo is here to change alternative protein to essential protein. I was with one of the leading food solution MNC Aviation Catering in Singapore and China, setting up central kitchen, coaching in several cities, and product development. And our 2 co-founders, Lily Chen from Taiwan with 20 years in food microbiology, and Eugene in finance, certainly formed the incredible 3 teams to pull off the business. We have a lead of advisor team to help pull all the resources to support our organic growth and business strategy. Pululo is a Latin word which means sprouting, growing, emerging, which gives inspiration to our logo. With massive logistics disruption, geopolitical tension, and current war that lead to high energy costs and inflation in major raw material to produce plant-based products such as soy, pea, chickpea. Most plant-based products in the markets are selling at a premium, and we really need to think deeply, is it going to be a bubble, or are we going to tell the world plant-based products are only for the niche population? To assure sustainability, we believe that plant-based alternative valorizing unused agricultural produce through precision fermentation is a sustainable and a breakthrough solution to address the 3 gaps: cost, taste, nutrition value. Henceforth, our mission is to produce highly affordable plant-based alternative for our planet, people with profit, for the mainstream mass market with huge emphasis on ESG consideration. Therefore, I'm here to present our food precision fermentation biotechnology, by which we upcycle unused agricultural produce into microbial protein we have managed to increase the protein level of more than 30 fruits and vegetables as an option to substitute current raw material to produce plant-based and even vegan products. Pololo first trajectory B2B business model aims to achieve the following. First revenue stream, top vertical, control our raw material as we position ourselves as food ingredient manufacturer and supplier to companies producing plant-based products. Therefore, we are not competitor to any company. Instead, we welcome more companies into these plant-based sectors to allow Miller's product to be everywhere and to allow consumers able to eat this delectable product anytime. Second revenue stream, meat vertical. We position to be one of the major plant-based product producer to global retailer at the most affordable cost. This will definitely ensure sustainability and affordability of consumer when they introduce them into their menu. Last revenue stream, Pololo aims to be one of the early movers to introduce our microbial-based protein to the underserved healthcare diet, which will dominate 10% of our portfolio. We are the first company in Singapore to focus on upcycling precision fermentation to produce high-value plant-based products application, and also the first companies to introduce fermentation-based protein to the healthcare sectors. This is our prototype we have produced valorizing different agriculture side streams. Take for example, probiotic beer using枸杞子, red dates, lychee, and plant-based liquid aids, which we developed with one of our largest global ingredient company, Givaudan, using grain, mango, and banana. We work with established research partners to develop market demand products. 5 MOU endorsed, including Hoya Food, one of the leading vegan companies in Taiwan. These are our go-to-market strategy partners established that will help us develop different plant-based food and beverage products, help us brand and market our products through their distribution channel regionally and globally. That is to say, our current stage is to scale up microbial protein powder and send to this respective partner to develop at least 2 SKU from each company. And we are confident to hit the global market with at least 10 SKU by 2024. To date, we have secured 5 MOU, which include getting for free all unused agriculture left over in 4 million hectares of plantation in Philippines, immediate land availability to set up our asset-light production plant. We have produced our first prototype of a sunny side-up egg using 3D printing. We are currently filing patent in Singapore and Philippines. We'll begin our production plant setup in Philippines when we are at pre-A stage and are expecting to break even by 2026. These are the milestones we have achieved with my own investment to the company and pre-seed round supported by Big Idea Venture with 3 industrial projects ongoing. We are currently running our seed round with only one objective, to produce at least 10 SKU to hit the regional market. We are targeting to raise 1.3 million for our seed funding round to cover our IP, scale up production, and expand our team to work closely with our strategic partners. All these key factors help to mitigate investment risk from the start. Importantly, shorter break-even period. Let me do some simple cost breakdown. The general production cost per ton is US $7,000. The selling price of uncooked plant-based product is estimated $38 per kg, which is really pricey for mass consumer. Importantly, they still need lands to grow their raw materials such as soy, pea, and chickpea, and they are subjected to the mercy of price inflation since they are at the meat vertical with no control over raw material supply chain. On the contrary, Pololo gets our raw material locally for free or at a nominal sum. We do not need high energy to produce since our microbe can stay active in ambient environment. With all these factors, we are able to provide much healthier and lower cost plant-based raw material substitute to support the plant-based and even vegan ecosystem to even bigger players like Impossible Food and Beyond Meat, which will definitely allow them to generate real profit in the long run. To end with, we developed the world's most affordable new dimension ingredient, better nutrition, and naturality without compromising consumer experience. Thank you very much.
Next up is Alan Yu, the founder and CEO of ID Water. ID Water has developed the world's first smart farming model that integrates water quality monitoring AI data analysis, and IoT automation technology. They are partnering with energy providers to create fishery and electricity symbiosis farms that will combine farming and photovoltaics to increase efficiency and sustainability.
Hi everyone, I'm Alan, CEO and founder of ID Water Technology. In ID Water, we provide world-leading indoor smart shrimp farming system, integrating with solar PV power plant. Established for over 6 years, we have been successfully farms and harvest numerous times in our shrimp farm in Yilan, Taiwan, and had an average annual revenue growth rate of 300% for the past 4 years. Unlike traditional shrimp farming, our farming method is sustainable, antibiotic-free, and instead with self-developed ALT system. The chart on the right is the data from the Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. The blue part is of the world seafood production via aquaculture, and the orange part is of the captured fisheries. Obviously, for the past 30 years, aquaculture market is growing in an astonishing scale with a 3 times growth rate greater than agriculture market. There's 2 causes for the phenomenon: population growth and the marine resource exhaustion. There are 3 reasons why we choose white shrimp as the species. First, it has one of the largest market size in all seafood categories, second only to salmon in pre-size. It's because white shrimp is consumed by all people across any countries, races, and religions. Second reason, white shrimp has a relatively short harvest cycle, which also means a shorter selling cycle. And third, white shrimp is a high profit margin market. Global market cap of all shrimp is that about $45 billion, and white shrimp shares 80% of it, which is around $37 billion. Taiwan government is providing solar energy nowadays with a high feed-in tariff rates as Japan used to do, but there are some limitations and regulations. To develop large areas of PV power plants, it must combine with fishery farms. Once the solar power contract is signed, the plant owner will be receiving a fixed high tariff for every kilowatt-hour of energy generated from upcoming 20 years. Due to the policy, we have been cooperating with major banks and foreign PE funds to build smart fishery and electricity symbiosis farms. Ongoing projects on our hands worth more than $30 million. Recently, ID Water is exporting our smart farming system to 2 foreign regions. First, we are now cooperating with one of the largest shrimp farm corporations in Vietnam, which has 50 hectares of indoor shrimp farming facilities with 60,000 tons of annual shrimp production. We have been talking to the chairman several times in Taiwan. Second, one of our investors has invited us to build a smart shrimp farm in Okinawa, Japan. This project will meet Japanese government policy on food self-sufficiency and also tackling the problem of aging farm workforce. Our core technologies can be broken down into 3 major parts. Water monitoring systems, the world's first system to monitor biological, physical, and chemical parameters simultaneously. Image recognition observation system with deep learning algorithm to watch over shrimp growth status and feed consumption. And last but not least, our patented automatic feeding system, which can decrease feed deviation about 3 times compared to others. With these technologies, ID Water is able to duplicate farming area in a huge scales without having personal training problems traditional farms are facing with. Traditionally, it takes 2 years to fully train a shrimp farmer, but in ID Water, with most decisions are made by AI, it only takes 2 months. Our model has proven that it is possible to produce shrimp in Taiwan with a lower cost as the Southeast Asia countries. And to us, This is a strong signal, which means we are able to take over traditional farm methods with a green, smart, and sustainable aquaculture practice. Thank you for listening.
Next, we welcome Karina Huang, the founder of Bongsha Bio. They're using their deep understanding in biotech to create a revolutionary nutrient delivery system for supplements. Using nanotech, they're turning nutrition supplements into candiceuticals, making it easy and joyful for people to get the nutrition they need.
Hi, I'm Karina. Do you know why Bongsha Bio takes dosage as a delivery system? Why are we dedicated to making preventive medicine enjoyable for billions? Before answering that, I'd like to share 3 facts of the nutraceutical dosage forms. First, 1 out of 2 persons experiences difficulty swallowing pills. Pills got stuck in the throat, leave bad taste, or cause vomiting. Second, the active ingredients bioactivity retention rate is lower than added dose. Third, only 5 to 50% of nutrients can be fully absorbed into the body. Hard to swallow, low bioactivity, and the poor absorption rates were 3 main reasons that cause users low compliance of taking the nutrients they need. If nutrition, health, and the human right is the gold standard for everyone, could we simply change the pill for us that is much easier to swallow and absorb? The answer is yes. The solution to this dilemma is the omni-friendly dosage. We turn the supplements into candy capsule forms, easy to chew and easy to swallow, with better bioactivity and better absorption rates. At the same time, we take care of the user's psychological demands and the physical needs. The nutrient they need in dosage form they love, both tasty and potent, hence better user compliance. Isn't it wonderful? The dosage form is key to maximizing the efficacy of the formulation. That's why we apply pharmaceutical science to nutritional supplements. That's why we are dedicated to being the best nutrient delivery optimizer. Some companies offer user-friendly forms of nutrition, such as powder, drinks, chewable tablets, and gummy candies. A friendly form is not enough. Only high efficacy can improve a person's health. If the bioavailability is too limited, the supplement is useless. Behind these tiny candiceuticals are some big innovations. We apply 3 core technologies. First, high nutrient dose in 1 candy. Unlike many existing candy supplements that come in low doses, the central feeding of our candiceuticals can contain at least 200 to 400 milligrams of the nutrients. Second, high bioactivity during manufacturing. Most nutraceutical ingredients are heat sensitive and oxygen sensitive, such as probiotics, omega-3, and vitamins. So candy manufacturing is basically the perfect process to destroy your nutraceutical ingredients. Temperature and pressures are the biggest challenges. We utilize a proprietary manufacturing process for each functional ingredient to ensure a high bioactivity retention rate. Third, high absorption rate after consuming. Nutrition in micro form is a future trend. Many active ingredients are proven good for health, but with very limited absorption rates, such as the curcumin. Its absorption rate is less than 1%. Our microvehicle creates microencapsulated nutrients to ensure higher bioavailability than the traditional dosage form. The global nutraceutical market was estimated at $454 billion in 2021. Our total service market of the dosage is $105 billion. Due to the pandemic, the nutraceutical market is growing rapidly. It is expected to expand to $991 billion in 2030. To benefit more users, we serve the nutrition brands and the pharmaceutical companies worldwide. We make a 10 billion like probiotic candiceuticals for the leading probiotic company. We use an extremely low water activity recipe at a low temperature and a low pressure manufacturing to keep the bacteria hibernated. They can remain viable and potent. Retaining the high bioactivity of the omega-3 is crucial to fish oil supplements. To produce oil-free omega-3 candiceutical, we use a 100% vacuum production line to prevent fish oil exposure to oxygen, and the fish oil-free technology to mask its unpleasant flavors. We helped Taiwan's biggest nutrition company to develop a new product with a strong flavor ingredient, which is hard to consume. We make them tasty and effective. We collaborated with the global #1 active ingredient supplier to help them to solve the low lutein bioactivity retention rate while making eye care products. Bongchao Bio is a delivery system platform with a strong R&D and ODM capabilities. We are not only recognized by top leading nutrition and pharma companies, but our dosage form won 3 gold medals at International Innovation Awards in Switzerland, Japan, and Korea. What's more, we have an invention patent for our proprietary manufacturing process. Our goal is to help everyone get nutrients easily and support healthy living with better quality of life. This tiny candiceutical has the potential to transform the nutraceutical industry by ending the trade-off between taste and effectiveness forever. If you resonate with our solution, join us to bring our next generation delivery system to benefit more people. Thank you.
Now, that's a wrap for the startup demos. Big thanks to the 5 teams for presenting today. We're truly excited by what's to come on your journeys. For today's show, we're also super honored to be joined by top-tier VCs in the agri-food tech space for a fireside chat discussion. Let me welcome Victor Chen, our founder and CEO, along with Rob and Thomas from AgFunder and Big Idea Ventures.
Welcome to the Foodland Ventures Agri-Food Tech Demo Days Fireside Chat Session, the global agri-food tech investment outlet. I'm Victor, founder and CEO of Foodland Ventures. We are a VC and accelerator investing global founders in agri-food tech sector. We invest in innovations that are driving the agri-food tech industry forward from farm to table, and are committed to helping our founders expand globally and help build an international agri-food tech community. That is why we're very honored to be joined by 2 of the most renowned VCs in the agri-food tech space. It's my pleasure to introduce 2 of our guests in the fireside chat. First, please welcome Rob McClure, the founder and partner of AgFunder, and one of the most active VC in the agri-food space at the moment. Hi, Rob. Can you give us a short introduction about yourself and perhaps AgFunder as well?
Yeah, sure. So I'm one of the founding partners at AgFunder. My background, I'm Canadian. I did a master's in AI, virtual robotics, went to Yale for a PhD in computational biology, and then graduated during the world financial crisis. And I was kind of at those early stages. I was really interested in sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs at that time of uncertainty, and that sort of brought me to food and agriculture. So from there, I eventually met my founding partner at AgFunder, Michael Dean. He was starting a food and agriculture business in West Africa. So I joined him there. Fast forward 2 years, and we were put out of business with the coup in Mali after the Arab Spring, and AgFunder spun out of that. Just really sort of thinking how much leverage we could get from technology. And we started off with a news publication, AgFunder News, to try to sort of build the narrative that we thought was needed to make this interesting to both entrepreneurs and venture capitalists. And we launched our first funds in 2017. So we have about 160 million assets under management, about 60 portfolio companies, and we invest broadly across the food and ag tech sector, primarily in seed and Series A.
Oh, thank you, Rob, for the introduction. And next we have, let's please welcome Thomas Mastrobaroni, the Chief Investment Officer of Big Idea Ventures, which focuses on solving the food and climate crisis with their new protein fund that operates across US and Europe and Singapore. Thomas, welcome. Can you also introduce us briefly about yourself and Big Idea Ventures?
Absolutely, Victor. Thanks for having me. So I joined Big Idea Ventures a little over 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was at Tyson Foods, where I helped launch and run their corporate venture team. Did that for just under 3 years. Prior to that, spent the bulk of my career in private equity, venture capital firms. Started my career in public accounting. So kind of a winding road to get to where I am today. But here at BIV, we operate a couple of funds now. New Protein Fund certainly is our flagship vehicle, investing in the alternative protein space, as you said, globally. We've also launched a fund focused on commercializing intellectual property developed at research universities around food, protein, and agriculture. And we're also working on a later stage vehicle to help address some needs both on the investor side as well as on the company fundraising side.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you, Thomas, for the intro. And let's move right into the topics today. Like, just purely from, you guys have both been in the agri-food industry for quite some time. And based on, like, we kind of want to discuss a little more about and kind of showcase to the agri-food tech entrepreneur about our observation about the market in the agri-food tech sector. Let's start with you, Rob. What's your take on the current agri-tech, food tech scene and how it has kind of evolved through time?
Sure. So, we started to put together our annual investor report back in 2015, sort of covering 2014. So we went from a very small base of, $3 or $4 billion to, I think, about $50 billion, broadly, globally, last year. Of course, we're now running into a new kind of market, and our expectation and sort of preliminary data suggests that there's going to be, a significant pullback. Again, this should reflect the broader market. What this sector has relied on, we've got some specialist VCs like Big Idea Ventures and others, but most of the capital is really coming from more generalist investors, right? And so in a more capital restricted environment, those investors pull up the ladders, shut the doors, and really, if they are even focusing on their core at all, will focus on their core. And so I think that will make capital a little less available, which is unfortunate. These are, for the most part, we're working in the world of atoms, right? This is not software, it's not SaaS, and we need particular types of investors who are willing to lean into those types of risks. But it's also a space that's attracting a lot of impact investors who maybe are tired of sort of impact washing, right? Where there's a real clear understanding on how food and agriculture does have impact socially, workers, health. It's just very clear. You don't have to really make up a very difficult story for people to understand. Sustainability is another one. There's probably no greater sink for carbon than sort of the agriculture industry using biology and harnessing that technology. So we're seeing a lot of interest amongst climate investors. And then I think sort of broadly, automation will be a continued theme. Labor shortages have become, a major problem in a lot of areas. We saw how disruptive it was during COVID as well. And I don't think none of that really goes away. And importantly, we start to have the technology now to start to make a dent in that, where this technology has improved, far faster than the rate of Moore's law. And so this is technology that wasn't available 5 years. So what was intractable problems 5 years ago have now become tractable problems. And so we're pretty excited about where that's going. And obviously, it's a big idea. We also invest in alternative protein. We think that there's obviously an enormous opportunity there, despite some of the pullback in Beyond Meat. I think the market's largely looking at Beyond Meat as the proxy, as the reference company. I don't think necessarily that company should speak for the entire industry. I think that there's probably certain challenges that company has, certain strains it had on the rate of growth that it had on revenue and the pressure they had as a public company. But more broadly, protein is an enormous industry. I don't think or very few of the ultra protein companies are hitting. I think to replace meat, you need to meet or beat on taste, texture, cost, convenience, health, and very few companies are even hitting on one of those brackets. So I think it's premature to foreclose on that industry, despite some of the kind of recent market challenges that will have a Gen 2 and a Gen 3 of companies and products that really start to meet and exceed meat. And I think you get to a point where you're exceeding meat on taste and cost and health. Question is, why do you remain with animal-based protein? So
yeah, definitely agree with the current trend in automation and the real needs of the industry, and especially due to post-COVID and the climate change problem. I think it has shined a lot of light into this space, and I think going forward, we still kind of I love to kind of come back to like the tech-enabled topic that you briefly spoke about, compared to like the traditional VC play, where this might not traditionally be a super sexy sector, but right now it's proven its resilience. And you guys actually have some record to show on that. But before we jump into that, let me kind of get Thomas' take on BIV. Like, you guys been in the opportunity space for quite a while, and before that, you've been in Tyson Ventures, and so you kind of have that both inside and out perspective of how like corporate kind of looks at it. Also, what's your observation of the current market and like in terms of protein? And I know that you guys are also venturing a little wider than just protein at the moment. And how do you guys kind of look at this agri-food tech sector?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're entering what I would probably call to be the least attractive section of growth for alternative protein, and that's around scale up and manufacturing capacity. This is the area where your Generals VCs, your Khoslas, your NEAs, this is not an area that they invest in. And a lot of money has been poured into the CPG alternative proteins, and they are going to be faced with a severe manufacturing challenge. There's not enough capacity. There's not enough commodity inputs to support what's going on the manufacturing side, right? You think about things like soy, you think about things like wheat. Those are all commoditized inputs, right? There's future markets. There's ways for these companies to hedge their cost structure. We don't have that with Yellow Pea. We don't have that with Mung. We don't have that with Fava. So you have companies either committing to year-long contracts to purchase product at a specific price, or you're faced with paying spot rate market price for ingredients. And in a world where margin matters in food, and that's one of the big takeaways I had from Tyson, was food companies make money, right? They have gross margins, they have contribution margin, they have net income, they have free cash flow. Beyond Meat is not currently structured as a food company, and that's why they're getting annihilated in the marketplace. And going to market as a food technology company that makes food, you have to have financials that look like a food company, right? There's reasons why Tyson's, Kraft's, Unilever's, Nestle's, they're portfolios of brands, right? They have a number of different product lines. They can adjust to seasonality fluctuations. If you're a grilling product company, you're going to do great in the grilling months, and you're going to do really poorly in the non-grilling months. That's just the nature of people and how they purchase product. So I think what we're going to enter into, and we've started to see it in our portfolio, you can even see it in our cohorts on how the accelerator companies we initially invested in were very consumer focused, consumer facing product. Now we're getting more and more into the technology side, the enabling side, precision fermentation, systems to help accelerate cellular protein growth, whether it's growth factors, cellular media, scaffolding technologies, right? And to Rob's point is a great one. We're going to go through iterations of this industry, and it's our job as investors to invest patiently and wisely. But patiently is probably the most important characteristic for us, because it's easy to hit the panic button and say, the world's pulling back. But if you look globally, it's actually not. Alternative protein as a segment is growing in Europe. It's growing rapidly in Asia. The US, we're seeing some pullback. And it's a race for eyeballs in the US right now. There's too many brands. There's not enough production capacity. And there's really very little product differentiation. Right? If you look at the product, they haven't changed in the past 2 years. Consumers want to see this moving forward. And I was talking to one reporter about this, and I said, we're kind of in the situation where the consumers are like, well, if this is the best you can do, I'm not going to buy it anymore. And the companies are like, this is the best we can do, just buy it. There's a disconnect going on between the companies and the consumers. And that's because a lot of the money that should be spent on R&D and product development is being spent on marketing and trying to buy eyes. And we need to find a way to switch that flow of capital.
I'll definitely agree with you guys, and because coming from our perspective, I think there's a general theme there. Like the tech-enabled play is definitely not traditionally focused in the VC sector, but it's definitely something that has more resilient. And that's if you get into the industry, I think there's definitely a lot of segment that needs disruption. For example, like we understand that like the entire agri-food supply chain, including like the very forefront of the food supply chain, is being disrupted. We invested all the way in in-store restaurant tech with automation. That's a really traditional tech-enabled industry, the restaurant industry, and we invested in another company called Caitong Agriculture. It's a smart logistic and procurement company that delivers food ingredients to restaurants. And they are disrupting the traditional wet market here in Taiwan and on its way to becoming the biggest procurement company that Taiwan has ever seen. We're also going to functional ingredients, agriculture. That's there's a lot of automation there and a lot of deeper tech play in agri-tech. So I think we're super excited about that also. And kind of just going into like and all the segment that has traditionally not heavily invested from the VCs. I think, can you guys give us a few example of what you guys believe that what's the next driver or what's in your current portfolio that's performing well? That's potentially the next driver within the agri-food scene. Thomas, I guess we can start with you. What do you think is the next driver in the maybe within the outputting scene or perhaps outside of it also? Because I think before we talk about the upstream food ingredient play, right? I think we'll love to hear a little more about that also.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm thinking to technology, the technology industry as the analogy here. You know, the things that allow e-commerce sites to do really well, the things that allow tech to do really well is the backbone, is the infrastructure, data centers, fiber, right? All that non-attractive category of investments that's usually relegated for sovereign funds or family offices, et cetera, right? Cell phone towers. Your cell phone won't work without repeaters on cell phone towers, but you won't find NEA or Coastal investing in those, right? It's not their model, but their models don't work without that model. So we're sort of building this thing backwards a bit, where we've built the front end, meaning the product, right? And now we're trying to build the back end to support it. So things that are interesting that we're seeing right now are around bioreactor technology and design. We're seeing a lot of companies talk about, I was just talking to one yesterday, cell-based seafood, a cultivated seafood business, and they have a novel bioreactor design, right? Because the equipment that fits their process does not exist. So they need to go create that. Precision fermentation is an interesting way to produce alternative proteins. You get away from the TVP or the texturized veg protein, which has particular afternotes and texture, mouthfeel problems to it. That's great, but you're talking about a fermentation tank that's going to be 50 to 100,000 liters. How do you monitor the process that's going on inside the vessel to ensure that your batch comes out on the other side and it meets all your QA and your QC procedures and protocols? So software that can monitor what's happening inside the fermentation tank and can make real-time adjustments to the inputs as the batch grows, I think is going to be critical to scale production success. Otherwise, you could end up with, a week or so later with a batch that's just completely useless. And now you've lost time, you've lost money, you've lost product, and most importantly, you've lost delivery slots for your customers. So those companies are doing really, really well in what we call the nurseries or the baby reactors, 1 liter, 5 liter, 10 liter. But this is not, as I tell people, this isn't a cupcake recipe. You just don't multiply by 10 and with your ingredients and it works, right? The biophysics of these vessels change as volume inside increases. So companies that are focused on that, again, it's not a really, it's a very niche business. Monitoring software for fermentation tanks, not a huge market, right? Today. But if this kind of thing isn't backed and isn't financed and built correctly, there is no future for precision fermentation at scale.
Yeah, you definitely need that more iterate time to get the information and iterate faster, so you can actually get to that current stage, right? I think that's definitely understandable. We definitely also see that as a major trend that's going on. We'd love to kind of going forward. We'd love to kind of see what kind of investment that you guys kind of make in this space, and kind of spearheading and maybe perhaps helping out all the alt protein startups actually iterate faster on the products. I think that's a great way to kind of go about it. And what about you, Rob? Like, what do you think is the next driver for the agri-food tech space?
So I mean, on the one side you have innovation, right? But then you don't really get anywhere without capital. Capital is ultimately the fuel that drives it, and what brings in capital is a story that inspires investors, right? And we saw that with alternative protein. We've seen that with indoor agriculture, right? And it's something particular about that story that sparks the imagination of investors. And generally, you're also working in very large markets, right? And so I think so we don't sort of separate those two things. We kind of factor that in to our analysis. And so you could have very interesting technology in the robotic space, but investors, for whatever reason, aren't as enamored with robotics as they are with other types of investments. So I think, you know, where we're going to see a lot of innovation is where we're going to see a lot of capital that can pull that innovation forward and iterate, and then that's going to serve as a base for new opportunities, you know, in maybe a tertiary space. So for one of the big areas, I think fundamentally is going to be carbon, right? You've got 37 gigatons of carbon emitted annually. I think that there's no better, more cost-effective way to capture carbon than through biology, right? So you've got, you know, simple solutions like agroforestry, but that probably taps out, you know, 7 gigatons. You know, that's just to put that into perspective. 7 gigatons of carbon would be about 14 gigatons of biomass. There's and this is annually, right? That you need to sequester, and there's 550 550 gigatons of biomass globally today, right? So this is a fundamental cap on how much biomass you can add to the world, right? So, but there's going to be other solutions like enhanced rock weathering. There's going to be other solutions like sinking things with kelp, right? So synthetic biology solutions, I think, will, you know, so where you see an intersection with massive carbon reduction or carbon removal, right? And then the enabling technologies for that. So somebody taking an enabling technology, applying it to that, I think you could see a lot of pull through innovation in that, you know, that technology stack. There's some companies that are doing nitrogen sequestration through microbes, right? And so there's potentially a synthetic biology approach to that. You know, reducing nitrogen would be a huge impact, and then, you know, obviously benefits farmers. So I think all of these things you know, can affect the carbon market. So that's, for me, that's where the capital is. You know, we see it at a governmental level, you know, national level, sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, there's, you know, and a lot of family offices, right? So people say this is an issue. How do we deal with it? Where can we have gigaton impact? And they come to this space. So that's where we expect a lot of capital to be coming from. Alternative protein, obviously, is, you know, I think Tom's working. It does a lot in the space, and that's an area where you can it is also going to benefit from some of the capital and has benefited from some of that capital.
Well, what about like the pure agriculture space at the moment? Because I know that you guys have just a recent, quite recent exit in the agriculture space to John Deere. Can you talk about like that and how like the bigger companies, I think, even though we've been talking about like the enabling tech, but there's a lot of situations where it doesn't make sense for like any kind of big company to actually have their own tech department and build their own tech. It's actually easier to acquire a lot of technologies. And can you talk about your scenarios and you guys' experience in that kind of that entire journey? I believe it's Bear Flag Robotics, right?
Yeah. So we invested in Bear Flag Robotics in kind of early COVID, summer 2020. They certainly had a hard time raising. So I think in general, robotics is a hard space. And what they do is they don't make driverless tractors; they make tractors driverless. And so they would put it on any kind of equipment, John Deere equipment, whatnot. And they were working with enterprise, at least sort of level farming operations in California primarily. And this solves obviously big labor costs. We kind of, in this space, we kind of model out a couple scenarios. The first scenario is acquisition by, strategic or corporate. Now, if you think about the size of these companies, I don't know what John Deere is. It's probably sub 100 billion, but I think at least a couple of years ago they were 50 billion or so. So somewhere within that range, right? That's an order of magnitude difference from the kinds of companies we see with Google. And so there's kind of an order of magnitude, or maybe even more, difference in what those companies would pay for technology. That's one. Two, these companies are not necessarily technology companies of the sort of new generation of technologists. The types of companies coming out of Silicon Valley, or the types of technologies coming out of Silicon Valley, Stanford, MIT, Harvard. We don't necessarily see that technology springing up from Bayer, from John Deere, from and like Nestle and whatnot. So where we like to lean in, if we're going to kind of think about that model, is do the corporates think they have a core competency in that particular area? Because if they do, they'll have teams of PhDs and who have been working at this exhaustively, and they won't really have much of an interest in an acquisition. So John Deere is one of the best metal benders in the world, right? But do they? How much do they really understand? Do they have a core enough team? And they did buy Blue River, so they're making some developments there. But to really be a technology company, you're going to need a very, very dense talent group, right? And a dense talent group that has leverage with the board and with the executive team to give them the autonomy to develop technology in the way you need to develop technology. So we've sort of modeled out acquisitions by corporates as sort of like the 200 million to 500 million. Once you get beyond 500 million, corporates generally won't have that appetite unless you have serious P&L. And if they have serious P&L, the company's probably valued significantly more, right? You look at Impossible Foods. I mean, they were always valued too much to be acquired. I think Beyond Meat with you guys are like, we can't pay that. Maybe we would have bought them for 50 million or 100 million, but we're not going to buy them for, they got 2 million in revenue and it would cost us 750 million. No way, right? So the more successful a company is as a technology company, it adds really exponential kind of value, and founders hold on and investors want to hold on. So you're going to have to come in early. So we do our seed stage in Bear Flag. I think it was a $25 million post money. It took 4 months for them to raise. It was a tough journey. They got it done. And then, 13 months later, John Deere made the acquisition. And if they didn't do it now because they were going out to raise a Series A, it kind of gets away from them, right? So they take a company off the market that could have gone to one of their competitors, right? They concentrate more talent. And it was a rounding error. I mean, it was, 0.25% of their, they on the day that they were acquired, they moved up, their valuation moved up like, I don't know, $1 billion or something like that. So, in some ways it just pays for itself. So that's sort of how we think about the corporate side here.
Yeah. Thanks for quite a deep insight of kind of like how if acquisition is strategy. I think it makes sense to kind of go that route, but kind of want to be structured in the valuation range that kind of makes sense for also for corporate. I think that makes total sense. But we do actually see potentially see that there's actually more of these acquisitions happening actually in different geographic area, perhaps, because I think there are more and more players, especially in our region in APEC and Southeast Asia. I think there are more conglomerate players that are actually interested in acquiring technology. And kind of segueing into our next question is, I think globally, I think there's different trends that are going on, and both of you guys has invested in different regional market. And I think it's definitely a global scene, especially there's a concern for food security that's growing globally. Do you guys see examples of ways that like the regional government or in different geographic area, how they react to supporting the agri-food tech scene and like the agri-food tech ecosystem? And how do you guys think that might or might not push things forward as effectively and whatnot? For example, I think just for Singapore, for example, there's a 30 by 30 pledge on the objective to locally produce 30% of its nutrition needs by year 2030. In this different geographic area, do you guys see different things that different countries are actually doing on the agri-food tech side? Let's start with Rob, perhaps. Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe Tom, why don't you take it? I think you guys spent a lot of time in Singapore, right? So
thanks, Rob. We absolutely do. And Temasek co-anchored the first close of New Protein Fund 1 alongside us at Tyson. And exactly, Victor, as you said, they saw BIV and New Protein Fund as a way to address at least the alternative protein piece of their 30 by 30 initiative. And we've had some really great companies come through the Singapore cohort program and gone on to do some really great things. So, but we're absolutely seeing Singapore continues to be focused and leading the charge around approving cultivated proteins to be sold to the general public, and to think about things differently. How do they attract talent, management teams, and capabilities and facilities, whether it's a wet lab for cultivated or contract manufacturing for traditional food products, right? Because we're always so focused on alternative proteins, and I say we, meaning BIV, but we forget that it's, right, Singapore imports, a couple of years ago, was 97% of their food, not of their protein, of their food. Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, imports 90% of its food products for its citizens. So this is both an international as well as a domestic challenge for us here in the U.S. We're seeing other countries interested for different reasons. We're talking with governments in the Middle East who see food production as a national security challenge and not wanting to be reliant on food import partners. We've seen what's happened with the wheat industry and grain with Russia invading Ukraine, and what happens when the breadbasket of Europe becomes disrupted, and we've seen ripples into the U.S. cereal market due to what's happened in Ukraine and prices increasing. So we've seen what's happened in China with the outbreak of ASF and having to slaughter the equivalent of the entire U.S. hog population, and what's happened to the price of pork in the U.S. as a result due to exports that have to happen to China. So food is no longer, I'm going to go to Europe and eat European food. I'm going to go to Asia and eat Asian food. I'll go to the US and eat fried food, right? It's not that anymore. We don't live in that economy anymore. So the entire food system has to be re-engineered, and how we think about exports and imports and balancing those two things around production. But yeah, countries are very, very attuned to, you talk to domestic security experts and they'll tell you we're 9 missed meals away from riots in the streets. Right? And when we got to COVID, I never thought in my lifetime or my kids' lifetime that I would see empty anything on shelves, right? I just didn't think, that wasn't my reality. That wasn't what we grew up with. But that broke down for different reasons. It wasn't food production, supply chain and transportation logistics, but that's all part of the supply chain. And we have to make sure that every part of it is bolstered and secured, because we saw how fragile indeed the food supply chain became. And part of that is we became enamored with this idea of fresh and local. that my food has to be fresh and it has to be local. Well, fresh means more real-time inventory, which means you don't have stockpiles and reserves, which means when things go sideways, there is no fallback. There's no safety net. Fresh is great, except when you have supply chain challenges.
What about you, Rob? What's your take on like how the government is actually supporting and the industry, and how the entire industry is shifting in different geographic areas?
Yeah, so we set up a early stage accelerator in Singapore with the support of the Singapore government. That's something that wouldn't have been possible. They're taking this space very, very seriously. During COVID, there was some questions around Malaysia shutting down the border for food, right? And so Singapore is an island nation. It doesn't have a lot of agriculture production. These are serious concerns for a country like Singapore. In the U.S., I think where we have a pretty good and resilient food system. I think the government is largely, I wouldn't say they're supportive of startups anywhere from that perspective. That we just have good capital markets. I'd say maybe the one area would be just around 45Q. Some of the work that came out around carbon sequestration and companies tackling these challenges. So there's a whole set of carbon credits that could be attractive, and really it's about enticing capital, right? If the capital's there, the entrepreneurs will come. So I think you have to go from like region by region by region to really see impact. Out of Europe, we don't see, maybe Europe's doing some stuff, but like I don't see them. I don't see any output from that effort. So.
But I think I definitely agree with both of you guys, because I think there definitely has to be a big drive within the enterprise, within the bigger guys that actually have that's actually serving the current market and has the scale to help you out. A lot of company policy, and that, for example, like Taiwan's clean energy policy, that actually drives a lot of interest from the enterprise end, and sometimes that kind of becomes like a wave that starts going to capitalize on that opportunity. For example, like the Taiwan clean energy policy that enables the entire solar power industry here in Taiwan. And we also have so we invested in an aquaculture tech company that's ID Water, who's also presented at the demo day today. And they've benefited tremendously under such policy, because they are becoming the biggest solar power aquaculture company. And because due to the policy, they in a very short time, they can actually become one of the bigger guys with the biggest market share in Taiwan. Currently, the Taiwanese government is actually focused on the cross intersection of agri-food and tech, because they did have a lot of good experience investing in like the pure tech, even like some of the semiconductor industry. So I think so we are like actually super eager to invest in technology that's driving the global agri-food industry forward. All right. So moving on to our last topic about the forum. Any advice for agri-food tech founders out there that's raising from VCs at the current condition, especially in the midst of the current economy situation?
Sure. I mean, I'll jump in. I mean, I think a lot of this is going to come down to fundamentals, right? So have a good team, have a good product, work in a good market. So be attractive to VCs, and you need to price yourself appropriately. I think if you're benchmarking to 2021 and you have these high aspirations, I mean, things are coming down a lot faster in Silicon Valley. And so when you go to a market that has a lot less capital in it, and you're seeing valuations that are 2 or 3x, that's the expectation. Right. That's not, even if you could raise it, you shouldn't, right? Because you shouldn't just be thinking about how much money can I get in this round. You got to think about what the next round looks like. And when VCs come, whether it's the A or the Series B, they're like, look, you raised, 10 million at 100 million post money, and you have no revenue today. They're not interested in writing flat or down rounds, right? And so you could, you could exclude yourself pretty quickly from the market because you've set an expectation of maturity for your company that you haven't realized, and then it has an impact on the psychology of the team, and so you want up to the right, and you don't want up to the right and then crash. It's particularly really early. You're better off a much slower, steadier path. Your investors are going to be happy. Your team's going to be happy. Better for your psychology. And so greed, I think, is probably the thing that arrests founders the most. And we have it in our own portfolio, and we want to shake them. And they're going to do what they're going to do. Ultimately, it's their companies, but usually, 99% of the time we're right on this, and oftentimes they will have squandered an opportunity and will end up raising less capital than they could have if they had just focused more smartly earlier. So
yeah, definitely definitely less greed and more focus on resilience. Yeah. And definitely, what about Thomas? What's your advice for like the guys that are currently raising at the moment?
Yeah, I can't echo what Rob said enough around realistic valuation expectations. We've seen a number of portfolio companies that have grown up with us, as well as others who have come to us seeking capital at valuations that just. I did something the other day I've never done. I declined a deck. Like, I have never declined a deck ever. I even if I have no intention of investing in the company, even if it doesn't fit what I do, I'll take the deck and I'll try and share it around to my network and be helpful that way. But this was an alternative protein company with sub $500,000 of revenue at a 9-digit valuation. And I said, save the stamp. Don't send me the deck, because I'm not going to do anything with it. And I don't want to increase your expectations. Like, we see over 1,100 deals a year in the alternative protein food tech space. So if you're coming to me and you want capital from us, you better be differentiated. You better know what you're talking about, because we have a team of PhD food scientists on our staff. Like, the tech can't be fuzzy, the go-to-market can't be hazy, and the valuation had better be market. And we're starting to see, I'm going to call it opportunities, because I'm a fiduciary for my LP's capital. I love my portfolio companies and I want to support the founders, but at the end of the day, I don't work for them. I work for my investors, and that it's caused some friction of late, because there are opportunities to invest in companies that can use the support and with some time can weather the storm and get out on the other side. But this moment in time, the situation that they're in calls for a different type of instrument. It's not equity. It's not a convertible. It's more like a high yield debt instrument. And I'm proposing that to some of my portfolio companies, and they're looking at me like I have 3 heads on. And then I come back to them with well, I don't actually work for you. I work for my investors, and they don't like that answer. I think we went through a period of incredible growth, of incredible access to capital and excitement about the space. And everyone thought we were going to sit around the campfire holding hands, eating s'mores for the rest of our lives. And that, for those of us who've been around the block a couple of times, as my kids pointed out to me this morning with my receding hair, that's not the way life works. And, we're going to have to adjust. And taking a valuation, as Rob said greatly, that you have no chance of growing into in the next round, you are setting yourself up for a disaster down the road.
And I would add, I don't look at the highest marginal bidder either. Look at where the market is, because somebody can come along and do something stupid, right? And if you think that person represents the market, right? They don't, and then you can ratchet to something that creates an unrealistic expectation in the next round, where the market, is pretty smart generally, and as you write bigger and bigger checks, the market gets more careful. So you have fewer investors doing stupid stuff for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. I think being realistic and I actually kind of knowing that perspective earlier is definitely beneficial to all the founders out there. And if we can kind of spearhead that, I think going forward, it's actually there's still a lot of potential going forward. We think that this downturn is, of course, it's going to be in cycles. I think we're going to face this from time to time. But definitely, I think kind of going back to resiliency, right? I think it's better to be realistic and showcase resilience and less of the fluff and bluff at the moment in the market. Thank you both for your advices. I think it's super awesome. And thanks again for both Rob and Thomas for joining us today, sharing your global insights in the agri-food tech space. And we hope to continue to have the opportunity to work with fellow VCs like AgFunder and Big Idea Ventures and bridging a global community that supports more agri-food tech founders that are making a great impact to our global food ecosystem. Yeah. And thanks for both of you guys joining us today.
Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, Rob, Thomas, and Victor, for such an insightful discussion. We can't be more excited about the enabling solutions we're backing that will contribute to a more secure and robust food system. And thank you all again for tuning in our 2022 Demo Day. Special thanks to our partners that made this day possible. Shortly after this, you can scan the QR code on the screen to connect to our startups. And if you're interested in joining our Fund and Accelerator program, please don't hesitate to reach out by scanning another QR code that's going to pop up. So that's a wrap for today. I'm Leo. See you all next time. Bye-bye.